In a divided world, how do you get 195 countries all on the same page? From Sao Paulo to Seoul, the Financial Times is the common thread connecting bright minds. It's read in every country recognised by the United Nations, by people who need trusted insight to make confident decisions. And with reporters in over 40 international bureaux, you can trust the FT to tell the global stories that matter, clearly and without compromise. Read more and subscribe at ft.com.
Nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Maybe not even Iran. But it is reasonable, indeed imperative, that efforts be made to prevent nuclear weapons being acquired by a state that practices repression at home and sows terror abroad, which has been led since its foundation in 1979 by delirious seers prone to apocalyptic visions, and which has explicitly pledged itself time and again to the destruction of a fellow member of the United Nations, i.e. Israel. None of which, to be clear, and none of what follows is any slight on the actual people of Iran, many of whom would not disagree with this assessment of their leaders, and all of whom deserve better than those leaders.
Iran has sort of agreed to the terms. They're not going to make, I call it in a friendly way, nuclear dust. We're not going to be making any nuclear dust in Iran.
For the last 7 weeks, negotiations have been occurring between the United States and Iran, seeking to reach some sort of agreement about what Iran can and cannot do with the nuclear program it has. This week, those talks appear to be nearing some sort of climax. Listeners who have kind of zoned out of this particular geostrategic conundrum in recent years may have thought that this was all sorted out, that there already was an Iran nuclear deal. Indeed, there was. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, an acronym which never really caught on. This was signed in 2015 by Iran and a host of concerned powers, including the United States.
Today, after 2 years of negotiations, the United States, together with our international partners, has achieved something that decades of animosity has not. A comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
However, US President Donald Trump flounced from JCPOA, really doesn't roll off the tongue, does it, during his first term back in 2018, damning it with characteristic understatement as the worst deal ever negotiated. It was widely concluded that Trump's objections were primarily, if not exclusively, to do with the fact that the deal had been signed by his predecessor, President Barack Obama. But a fair question to ask is, regardless of Trump's reasons for making this assessment, was he entirely wrong to make it? The basic trade JCPOA made was that Iran agreed to restrict its nuclear programs and allow international inspections in return for easing of the sanctions which hamstrung its economy. So, ideally win-win. Iran doesn't get a bomb, Iran's people do get a somewhat easier ride. However, the deal did not stop Iran enriching uranium entirely, the terms were not permanent, and it is just about possible that Iran's rulers used some of the funds which were made available to further flex their tentacles across the region. But it was, maybe, better than nothing and did forestall for a while at least the prospect and the consequences of an Iranian bomb. Saudi Arabia, for one, has stated plainly that if Iran had a bomb, they would want one too. Certainly, since the US withdrew from the deal, Iran has stepped up its nuclear activities considerably, enriching uranium to near bomb grade, though this may be a feint intended to establish a perch from which to climb gracefully down. But, and this certainly appears to be the US view, Iran may have missed its moment for negotiating from any position of strength. Iran is in a much, much weaker position than it was a decade ago. Its economy is a wreck. Iran, a colossal country with all the human and natural resources a nation could covet, has a GDP per capita outstripped by Cape Verde and Samoa. Iran's web of baneful influence across the Middle East has been substantially shredded. Key events in this unravelling include the 2020 drone strike near Baghdad airport ordered by Trump during his first term, which killed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps commander Lieutenant General Qasem Soleimani, primary director of Iran's foreign interference programs, the more recent decapitation of Hezbollah, Iran's proxy in Lebanon, the dismemberment of Hamas, Iran's protégés in Gaza, the defenestration of Bashar al-Assad, Iran's puppet in Syria, and the defanging of the Houthis, Iran's deputies in Yemen. Modern Iran has always been a country which has clients and vassals rather than allies and friends, but at present Iran doesn't even have many of those. Its nominal current partners, China and Russia, are no more delighted by the prospect of an Iranian bomb than anyone else. Both were signatories to the original nuclear deal. The new deal on the table is believed to offer Iran international help in developing its peaceful nuclear program, in return for which Iran would desist from uranium enrichment to some still to be determined extent. As of this broadcast, Iran is reported to have knocked it back. While not militantly opposed to the idea of an international consortium, Iran is not into being shoved around by the US vis-à-vis whether or not it can enrich uranium. Further talks, apparently scheduled for this weekend, may clarify matters further, one way or the other. But it is possible that none of this really matters anyway.
Israel and the United States agree that Iran should not have nuclear weapons. But we disagree on the best way to prevent Iran from developing those weapons.
Israel has long believed, and probably not without reason, that the acquisition of nuclear weapons by any actual or potential antagonist represents an existential threat. Israel's thinking is essentially this, that the point of Israel is that it should be a defendable haven for the long-beleaguered Jewish people, but it is obliged to maintain this on a sliver of land so slender that its only form of defense is attack, and that therefore they're not going to take any chances. This is why Israel built its own, still officially undeclared nuclear arsenal as soon as it could, which was probably, according to most informed assessments, sometime in the late 1960s. Israel has previously demonstrated a readiness to act unilaterally. In 1981, the Israeli Air Force bombed a nuclear reactor under construction in Iraq. In 2007, they did much the same in Syria. A steady tick of facilities and individuals associated with Iran's nuclear program have met violent demises. All parties to these negotiations surely understand that the real guarantor of last resort is a country which has never been in the room and never will be. If anybody is halfway to composing an indignant screed about Gaza at this point, please bear in mind that there is a reason these episodes are called explainers, not endorsers. For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Mueller.